So we give them our money, then they hire a private lobbyist to then go after more of our money. It is ridiculous and a complete waste, but more importantly, it begs the question, what is the job of your state representative, of your state senator? Is it not? So take the city of Louisville hiring all these lobbyists. Do your state house reps and your state senators not represent you? Are they not who you should be calling on? You shouldn't need to hire a lobbyist. You have state house reps and state senators to represent your concerns. School districts shouldn't have to hire lobbyists. They have state house reps and state senators to represent your concerns. And hello, everybody. Welcome to another amazing episode of the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Of course, I'm your host, Andrew Cooperrider, candidate for state treasurer, and your conservative commentator. We're coming at you on a Wednesday. We're going to start doing these shows weekly on Wednesday instead of weekly on Tuesdays. Simply put, while on the campaign trail, Wednesdays are just a lot freer and open for us. So we're able to kind of get this out and get this recorded a little bit better. I've been blown away by the amount of support I've been getting and the amount of you guys are sharing these out. Of course, this podcast, for those who are unaware, has been going on for about 2 years now. This started before I was running for office. I was doing this podcast talking about bills, talking about Kentucky issues. And so we've just kind of continued to grow that, seeing tremendous growth. And you're a big part of that. So please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thousands of people listen every week, and we appreciate that. And we hope to have thousands and thousands more. And you can be a part of that. Just comment, like, share. Those are the things that Facebook likes. If you're on Facebook, do that. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. It really helps out. And today, what we're going to be covering is bills. We're going to talk about bills today. There's a lot of bills been filed over the next month. In my weekly episodes, I'll be going over the different bills because right now they're kind of out of session. So for those of you who don't know how this works, they have a 30-day session, but that's actual working days of session. So they went in for, I believe, 3 days earlier this month, early January. They've gone out. And now they're just filing bills and everything else. So they come back into session in February to start to do some work, and they'll be more regular. So we're going to talk about the bills that have been filed. There's a lot of them. So we're just going to cover just really House Bill 1 through House Bill 50 in the House. And then we'll kind of cover the House bills and the Senate bills as we progress on through the episodes. And I'm not going to talk about every single bill. 50 bills, you kidding me? I'm not going to talk about 50 bills. But I'm going to talk about a couple of them and give you some commentary on it. So please like, comment, subscribe, share, and let's dig into it. First, we're going to start off with House Bill 1. Now, anytime you're looking at bills in the legislature, whether that's at the federal or state level, the low-numbered bills, your HBs through 1 through 10s pretty much, and your SBs 1 through 10, generally speaking, those are going to be the key bills that you're almost positive are going to get passed. A few of those are. And of course, the first one's already passed Senate and House, and that is House Bill 1, lowering our income tax down in accordance to House Bill 8, what they passed last year. We've covered this on many a podcast. I'll link in the description to prior podcasts where we've talked about this. And I'm not going to rehash out House Bill 8 from last year, but this is a part of that bill, House Bill 1, lowering our income tax 0.5% this year, 0.5% next year. That was the vote. And of course, that's moving through. But funny enough, on House Bill 8 from last year, there is one bill that is in the 50s that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to go a little bit out of order. And that is House Bill 44, attempting maybe to fix something. This is from Representative Ken Fleming, I believe. Maybe to fix something wrong in House Bill 8. We'll see if it gets any traction. House Bill 44 is removing the sales tax on marketing. So House Bill 8 from last year put that 6% sales tax on B2B marketing, meaning that if, like, for example, as you guys know, I own businesses. If I go out and buy a billboard, and I'm going to tell you what, here in Lexington, a well-placed billboard could cost as much as $5,000. You're looking at the ones on New Circle there in Lexington. We're talking $500 to $7,500, depending upon the time of the year, depending upon the demand for that area at that moment. So let's say it's $5,000. Well, 6% sales tax on that, of course, is quite a big chunk of change, right? What would see that'd be $300. That's a pretty big chunk of change. But what happens is you know, they say House Bill 8 from last year is supposed to be revenue neutral. However, I ask why did it require an increase in revenue, but let's put that to the side. If you're seeking to be revenue neutral, if you're saying, look, we're not raising the overall tax burden on the citizens, well, or we're not upping the sales tax, well, the problem becomes is when you're charging a sales tax on B2B services, you are in a way passing a tax on to the citizens. I'll give you how that works, right? If I'm a business owner, if I have a 6% sales tax, that just gets on marketing, that just gets added into my top line overall costs. I'm going to have to raise my prices to make up for it. So while they didn't actually raise the sales tax to the end user, but because the cost of the good has gone up in price, that is raising the taxes of goods and services, no matter what they are, if you're taxing on marketing. And it does get passed directly on to the consumer. It may not be as obvious as the sales tax, but much like inflation, it is a tax on the consumer. So Ken Fleming has House Bill 44, where they're attempting to remove that sales tax item from the list. We'll see what happens. We'll see, you know, they say always, hey, we'll pass this bill and then we'll go back and tinker with it. Let's see here. This is the first attempt at tinkering with this bill that I've seen. Let's see if that gets some motion, if that gets some movement, if they can come in and tinker with this a bit. House Bill 8 could go from a bill that I initially really didn't support to a bill that maybe works out for the better, but they're going to have to start tinkering with it. And one of those things to make sure they're not raising the price of goods and services for the citizens is with House Bill 44 removing the marketing service sales tax. So moving on from there, we got House Bill 12, which is a use of phone act, right? So this means that it would basically legally require us citizens to use Bluetooth or something like that. As I understand it, use Bluetooth or something like that while we're driving, unless you're under 18. If you're under 18, you cannot even use Bluetooth, according to this bill. Now, I do have a little bit of issue with this because obviously speaking, hands-free driving, and look, I'm not going to defend texting and driving. We all do it sometimes, I'm sure. I'm sure you've done it. I'm not going to defend it. It's wrong. You shouldn't do it. It's distracted driving, and it can lead to accidents. You shouldn't do it. And I am more than okay with the idea that you shouldn't text and drive. I think it's hard to find an enforcement for it, mechanism for it, but you know, I can look at it and say, look, it's causing accidents. It's obviously distracted driving. It can be like drunk driving, right? We don't want people driving drunk. So, okay, I can see that. I don't quite understand your enforcement mechanism for it, because that can be pretty difficult when you think about it. I mean, you're driving down the highway, how are they supposed to do it? And you'd hate to see something like you're at a red light and you pick up your phone at that moment to maybe respond to a quick text while you're sitting in a red light. Yeah, it's annoying waiting on people at red lights to, you know, go on if they're not paying no attention, playing on their phone. But it's not exactly, I wouldn't call it dangerous per se. I mean, you could say that maybe they're distracted, they look up, they think they're moving, they rear end somebody. But I wouldn't call it life-threatening dangerous if at a red light you're texting on your phone and you're not supposed to be. But outside of doing it, enforcing it, then I don't quite understand how they're going to enforce it out on the road. That leaves a lot of questions to be asked. And also too, like I said, with this bill as well, they're saying if you're under 18, you can't even call or anything like that. You know, I think that goes a little too far personally. Once it's said, you've got the hands-free methods and everything else. I understand we want to keep our hands off the phones, even with these kids. But I tell you what, my son, he's 11, he doesn't drive. But if he was 17 years old driving, and I call him, to make sure he's okay or see where he's at or something like that, you know, you'd like to think that if he's using Bluetooth, he could pick up and talk to me. But, you know, maybe you guys disagree with that notion. Maybe you support the bill. That's House Bill 12, though. I think it's called the Phones Down Act or something like that. And that's certainly one to watch as well, as it impacts our daily lives as far as what's illegal and what's not. Next here, we got House Bill 13, 17, and 20. We're going to call all of those kind of some school bills, though they're not very similar, but they all deal with school. No shocker there, considering, like I said, 50-60% of our state budget is going to education. First, we've got House Bill 13, which moves bus driver physicals from 12 to 24 months. Physical exam for the bus drivers from every 12 months to 24 months. And it does beg some questions, right? Why are we doing this? Okay. Now, I believe that this is occurring because school districts are struggling to find bus drivers. And so by moving these requirements differently and providing more flexibility there, then these school districts will be able to hire in bus drivers at a better clip, at a better rate. And by that, I mean like more bus drivers. And there's certainly a bus driver shortage, no doubt about that. However, it does lead to a question. Why was the bus driver physical exam at 12 months to begin with? Are you saying it was overkill? You're saying 12 months was overkill and it should be 24 months? Are you only moving it to make it easier to recruit? Or is there actually it's just not needed every 12 months? Are you saying that we were overreaching? We were by requiring this physical exam, and we were requiring it too often. Of course, school bus drivers aren't the only people who are required to take, often physical exams. You have airline pilots, truck drivers, right? DOT. Those are DOT, Department of Transportation physicals. Those types of people, they're required to take medical exams often. But we're moving bus drivers from 12 to 24 months. Is that a good idea? If the empirical data shows that, look, if they're good at 12 months, they're probably good at 24, and it's not going to increase danger for the kids, then yeah, okay, makes sense. And it helps us hire more, makes sense. But what was the reason it was set at 12 months? Was that an arbitrary number pulled out of the sky? And I don't mean to harp on this one issue about bus drivers. It's not the end-all, be-all issue. But I do think it is worth having a conversation about how do we set these guidelines and how are we moving forward? Are we just plucking things out of the sky? When we originally set it at 12 months, and now since then, some people, bus drivers, and we've actually bothered to talk to people who are stakeholders or actually know what's going on with this, and they've said, look, 24 months is okay. We can get the job done in 24 months. It doesn't need to be every 12. That's overkill. I don't know, but I am curious to know how we just drew that 12 months out of anything, out of just thin air. House Bill 17 says half-day kindergarten, gonzo, no more half-day kindergarten programs. And we're seeing this push all across the country and the state, full-day kindergarten, pre-K included in our public schools, things like that. Democrat filed a bill on that here in Kentucky about doing pre-K in our public schools. And, I remember growing up, I did every other day kindergarten, right? So one day I was at school, one day I wasn't at school. And I think overall we have to ask ourselves, is why is it necessary? Now, some people could say, look, it's necessary because we're going to help working mothers and fathers get back into the workforce. So they're not, maybe they're saying, hey, one of the reasons why they can't work and so they can't, maybe they're on the public assistance is because they have kids, and half-day kindergarten means they're very limited on how much they can work. Maybe that's the reasoning behind it, and that's a reason to think about it, though I think it's a little dystopian to say that, look, we need your kids in school so you can go out and work more. Of course, that goes into a whole nother argument about why is it, that goes into a whole nother argument about the two. There's a book actually Elizabeth Warren wrote called The Two-Income Trap that talked about how, the prices of things expand to reach things. And so for so long, we've had a two-income households that in order to live as a family, you have to have two incomes, or one person who earns as much as two people do on average in order to survive as a family. And that didn't used to be that way. And so maybe, that's a culture thing. I think that has to do with, if you look at the pricing of things, they will expand to match what the market can handle. And so by having two parents working, it creates a situation where the market can handle more pricing, and that causes an increase in the cost of things. And that requires parents to have to work two jobs, one, in order to make ends meet. So, if that means kids got to be in school more, okay. Of course, I think a lot of conservatives are uncomfortable with where our public education system is right now. I think all of us are uncomfortable with the idea of them spending more time in school, considering, quite frankly, considering what they're teaching these kids and what some of the policies that these districts are adopting is certainly concerning to a lot of parents and taxpayers. And so that could certainly be part of a concern here. But, if it's something that is helpful to people, okay, I think it's definitely something to be debated. House Bill 20 increases the contract minimum for public bidding from $7,500 to $30,000. So for those of you who don't know, I do some, I don't do it anymore. I actually dropped it because I was running for office. So I stopped doing work for the government. But I used to do work for the government as a contractor with one of my companies. And so there's once you get above a certain value of contract, you have to publicly bid it out. You have to list it for public bidding, and then you're required to get at least 3 bids for that. And then there's like a public bidding process. It's a way to ensure that individuals aren't helping their buddies out or just awarding contracts to people they like. And so this is specifically just to allow the schools to move that threshold from $7,500 to $30,000. So if it's a $25,000 project, they don't have to bid it out. They can just go hire somebody to do it. This is put forward by Timoney, and that's only interesting because Representative Timoney is actually an operations director for Fayette County Public Schools. So it's something that he's specifically experiencing and has decided would make his job easier. However, it obviously creates more opportunity for special handouts to people. It creates more opportunity to have those situations where you can see some impropriety. You can see some handoffs of sorts, some kickback situations. That certainly can be a big issue there. And so I can also understand that, look, if my HVAC goes down, it could cost $15,000. It could cost $20,000, could cost $25,000. I don't have the time to go through that whole bidding process because it's over $7,500. So instead, I'm just going to go ahead and get this done. Maybe that is what it's aimed at. I don't know. But it's certainly interesting, though, that this is needed for the schools, but no other pieces of government. I don't know what makes the schools so much special. Like other parts of government don't have this issue. Obviously, it's just because Timoney deals with this, but he hasn't bothered, I guess, to see if other business, other government needs to be included in that. But then also, too, let's have the discussion. Is that good overall for our transparency or not? The public bidding process is good. I think a better way to handle this would be to sit there and say, you can have an emergency signifier for a variety of different projects, and maybe you're limited and you've got to justify, if ever called upon, why it's an emergency, and it can be for contracts under $30,000. Otherwise, you have to bid out any non-emergency, regularly occurring type projects more than $7,500, because you could certainly see things like textbooks now and things like that not becoming a part of public bid. And that greatly diminishes the ability to seek out things. Because understand this, a lot of the ways that you find out what textbook supplier, and if it's a woke textbook supplier, as we're seeing like in Florida and things are picking up on, is from these contracts. It's from these contracts that they're going out to order and to order books or teaching materials for it. And if they happen to be less than $30,000, the paper trail to figure out what they're buying, who they're buying from, and everything else gets a lot harder, and it's a lot harder to check on it. And so that would be a downfall of this that I think should be addressed. If this is just for facilities, maybe it should just be said, hey, this is just for facilities, because we're losing that important transparency check on what are our schools buying to teach our kids with. Next bill of note here is going to be House Bill 26. This is one of Felicia Rayborn's bills. This is the second year she's introduced it. I hope she keeps introducing it. It's banning taxpayer-funded lobbying. We spend millions, literally millions of our tax dollars on lobbying the state government, and it makes absolutely no sense. And this can take many forms. So as I cover my wasteful spending report, the Louisville, UK and U of L, both government entities, pay for lobbyists to lobby our state government. But then you have the Louisville government pays for lobbyists. And then you have the Louisville Waste and Water sewer systems, they pay for a lobbyist. The roads and department of Louisville pays for a lobbyist for the state government. You have that in all these states. You have individual governments of cities paying for lobbyists, but then you also have these associations. Here's one, would be the County Clerks Association. So the county clerks have an association that they take in each county, they take your tax dollars, and then they pay the dues for this County Clerks Association. Then that County Clerks Association pays for a lobbyist to lobby on behalf of the county clerks. Okay? Then, on top of that, you also have situations where you have entities like Kentucky League of Cities and a few others that are literally funded by taxpayers. They're funded through appropriations from the local cities and counties and city and state as well. They're funded as part of the budget. Then they turn around and hire lobbyists to get more of our money. So we give them our money. Then they hire a private lobbyist to then go after more of our money. It is ridiculous and a complete waste. But more importantly, it begs the question, what is the job of your state representative, of your state senator? Is it not? So take the city of Louisville hiring all these lobbyists. Do your state house reps and your state senators not represent you? Are they not who you should be calling on? You shouldn't need to hire a lobbyist. You have state house reps and state senators to represent your concerns. School districts shouldn't have to hire lobbyists. They have state house reps and state senators to represent your concerns. What this is about creating, one, it's to reward back, to flow money into private entities, taxpayer dollars to private entities, and they're making millions. I'm talking tens of millions of dollars are spent every single year lobbying our state government for more of our money. And it's an investment for them and it pays off for them. But these cities are doing it, simply put, because they want to hire somebody you like more to take more of your, that these state house reps and state senators like more than them, to take more of our money. And it doesn't make any sense at all. And I think it's pretty corrupt. It's pretty messed up that our tax dollars are used in this way, are used to pay for other people to lobby those people. I already feel pretty uncomfortable with lobbyists in general, as I'm sure you do. But to think that our tax dollars are paying for these lobbyists, it seems a little out of control. So House Bill 26 ends taxpayer-funded lobbying. No longer, if this bill passes, would your tax dollars go to lobbying. What are the chances this passes? I don't know. There's a lot of sponsors on this, a lot of good people sponsoring this. But you have the issue of that the lobbyists will obviously fight tooth and nail to stop this. I mean, you've got the health departments pay for lobbyists. It went up like 20-fold over the course of the course of the pandemic, that the taxpayer dollars, our tax dollars, state dollars, that went through our health departments to a private lobbyist to then lobby our state government went up like 10, 20-fold. It is ridiculous how much of our money they are spending on this. Ridiculous. Additionally, as well, we've got House Bill 30. That is the biological boys and girls bathrooms in schools bill. This is done, I believe, by Bill Wesley and John Hodgson, new state house rep. He jumped on as a sponsor, basically stating, look, boys and girls got to use boys and girls bathrooms. You got to use the bathroom you're biologically assigned. Of course, this dates back to, as we saw it in Loudoun County and other areas where we saw a person identifying as transgender to excuse themselves from using the women's bathroom, them going in and sexually assaulting other students. That's certainly a big concern. That's not hearsay. It's not saying, oh, you're just saying that. No, that's what happens as well. And also, too, it goes into a general idea like, look, we shouldn't be encouraging this kind of behavior. It is enough of a confusing time for our young girls and boys going through puberty and everything else that we don't need to be complicating it by asking them which bathroom that they need to be using. And also by buying into this kind of side of things where I think it is, you can call it the a moral panic if you want. I don't think it's a moral panic. I think it's a real concern that we need to be really concerned about. And I hope House Bill 30 gets some traction and passes. It does ask some questions where you see the federal government coming down on some states doing these kinds of things, threatening to pull their federal lunch dollars. So I am encouraged to see our House saying, look, here's a bill we want to see passed to directly challenge Joe Biden's edicts coming down from the federal government on this transgender bathroom stuff. And I think it's incredibly important. It's a very, think about this, right? You don't like it when people are, it's uncomfortable peeing in front of people and using the bathroom in front of people. That's just uncomfortable. You know it. I know it. We don't want somebody coming in with a boy coming into a girl or girl coming into a boy's bathroom, and it's just causing all these issues. And look, you can claim that somehow, some way, that if we don't allow them to use whatever bathroom they decide they want to use that day, then it's somehow, if you connect these dots, it's somehow creating suicidal kids or something. We hear that argument all the time, but I find it hard to believe if we have such a mental health issue that if I don't let you use whatever bathroom you feel like using, you are now going to go end your life. We have greater issues than just what bathroom you want to use. We need to be addressing that issue with that child, and we need to be offering a lot more help than simply saying use whatever bathroom you feel like. That is a child not in a good place, and we definitely need to be dealing with that. That is not a mentally healthy child. I don't think anybody would disagree that a child who feels so mentally scarred because they have to use the bathroom that of the gender that they're biologically born with is mentally okay, and that needs to be addressed. And simply buying into this lie that they're a different gender is not getting them the treatment that they need. It's not happening. Moving on from that, House Bill 31 would stop Kentucky Board of Education from being able to require the 19 vaccine from being required in order to go to school. This, of course, has been a big concern ever since we saw the FDA add it to their scheduled vaccines, that it would be an option for these schools to add it on to as well. So this would say the Kentucky Board of Education saying, look, you can't require that in order to go to school. That makes a lot of sense. I'm sorry, it does. It does to me. Objectively speaking, we can all agree, we should be able to agree, just even looking at the data that's available, let's say you trust 100%. The flu is objectively more dangerous for K through 12 schools than the 19 is, right? We should be able to agree on that. Objectively speaking, that to be true. So if we're not requiring the flu vaccine, why should we be requiring the 19 vaccine? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And this is making sure that we don't go down that path. Finally, last bill here, we've got House Bill 50, which makes elections partisan. This is depends on where you live, could determine how you feel about it. Here in Lexington, where I live, we have nonpartisan city council races, nonpartisan board of education. If you take those races and you make them partisan, and judges too, of course, all of our judges, all board of education are generally nonpartisan. City council can be nonpartisan. Sometimes it's partisan. Like Louisville, it's actually partisan, but it's nonpartisan here in Lexington. So depending upon where you live, you could have different opinion on this. If you live in a very conservative area, you're like, yeah, let's make them partisan because that helps. If you live in a very Democrat area, you could be like, yep, let's make it partisan. Make sure no conservatives sneak in here. But if you are a conservative living Democrat area, you could have issue with it because you're saying, look, you're just going to make our school boards worse. You're going to make our city councils worse. But the question becomes, is you've got these other counties, like this bill was introduced by Matt Lockett, and he resides in Jessamine. He's got part of Lexington and like half of Jessamine. And in Jessamine County, for an example, is a very conservative county. So if you put a party indicator on these school boards, then in turn, that would create a situation where it would provide more information. Now, there is one particular election that I have no issue at all, and I'm not even saying I have an issue with all these other ones being partisan. I'm just saying I can understand why other people would be concerned. There's one particular election where no matter where you live, I do maybe think they should be partisan, and that is the judge elections. Now, you could be saying, Andrew, but if you just said, though, conservative areas, non-conservative areas, I hear you. But hold on here. And a lot of people, too, they will balk at that. Judge elections being partisan. What? Follow me here. Listen. And I had Judge John Reynolds on, and he talked about this. He talked about why it should be partisan. He brought up a lot of good points. And I agree with him. I agree with Reynolds on what he was saying. Because first, accept the fact that judges are partisan. Okay, when we're looking at the federal Supreme Court, we're looking at them and they're putting people on to the court. It is a partisan thing. We know it is. All the Democrats vote yes, all the Republicans vote no, blah, 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 blah. It has become a partisan thing. So our highest court in the land, we can agree is partisan. When we look at the judges and how they're deciding, we say the conservative judges versus the liberal judges. It's become partisan, whether we like it or not, because there's all these issues that come down and we see too many. And honestly, who did this, I believe, is the liberals, because they've turned to their activist judges way too much to do way too many things. And it's made the judgeships very partisan. But on top of that as well, how do you grade a judge? And this was what me and Judge John Reynolds were talking about. How do you know if a judge is good or not? The only thing you can because it's not easy, it's not easily publicly available to see the outcomes of all their individual court cases, how the judges ruled, unless it's a very public and very publicized case. You're generally speaking not going to see how a judge has ruled on it. Especially in family court, it's really hard to tell how they're making claims there and everything else, because all you see normally is the agreed upon order. You don't really see a whole lot of finding of evidence or anything like that. How do you judge that judge, right? How do you as a voter judge those judges? You say, well, you got to research them. What? You can't research their cases. It's very difficult to find them. You want to say, well, you can talk to them. You can ask them. Go ask a lot of these judges, especially the liberal ones. If you ask them, you can't ask them how they're going to rule on cases. You ask them, how'd you rule on this case? They will literally they say this during the Supreme Court confirmation too. They say, well, I can't tell you how I'd roll on that case. I'm not allowed to tell you. I can't tell you. It's a violation of ethics. I can't tell you. So they've created these ethics where they can't tell us how they'll rule on cases. You also can't see how they've ruled on cases. You can't ask them what their values are exactly. So all you get from them, and I'm telling you this from somebody who's been on the campaign circuit, hearing judges speak, all you get from them is some mundane details about, oh, I'm married and I've got a dog and a kid and this runs into that and that does this and this jumps up and down and blah, blah, blah. And I've been a lawyer or a judge for this many years. And so often they'll be like, I've been a judge for 8 years, vote for me. Or I've been a lawyer for 30 years and I've tried this many cases, so vote for me. Well, I have no idea. Yes, you're all lawyers in order to run. But does that make you a good judge or not? In those 8 years, how have you ruled on your cases? You can't say. Can't say. Or at least it's hard for them to say, and you can't research it. And I think that's a good defense for why judge races should be partisan. Because frankly, how else do you judge them? City council, board of education, things like that. You can go look up minutes from meetings. You can go see how they voted on things. You can research them that way. Judges, you get none of that, really. Very difficult stuff. You could ask your lawyer friend, but are they really the best judge? Maybe they're just mad because they got a bad ruling from them one time and now they hate them. So I could see that becoming partisan, and that makes a whole lot of sense as far as any pushback against this. I think it depends on where you live, right? You're going to see Democrats pushing back against this that are worried about how these boards and city councils will now become more conservative in these already conservative areas because they've been hiding how they feel about things. I'm thinking of Bowling Green and as such. But then also at the same time, you've got areas like Lexington and Louisville where if you're a Democrat, you're saying, yeah, I'd love that. Make sure I get all the secret conservatives off because, get the 3 or 4 conservatives that are on the city council, get them gone, get the board of education people gone, get all them out of here. I could see that too as well. I think it's definitely something that needs to be heavily debated about making all elections partisan. Well, guys, that's what we have time for today. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully, I filled you full of great information, and you share that out there, and you tell other people about it. Come back next week. We're going to go into more bills, and hopefully you stay up to date on what the state legislature is considering. I thank you guys so much, and have an amazing rest of your day.